Season 3 of the 2003 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show did all crazy things in a short amount of time. First off, a save the world from a Triceratops invasion, to then travelling across time and space with the Ultimate Draco, to finally stopping the Shredder once and for all. Well, for now at least. So I thought it would be a good time as any to take a look back on this season to try and find the top 10 best episodes. And if you would like, you can comment your ones in the comments below. It's really interesting to see what people have to say about their top 10 episodes, because I've always feel like this is a quite interesting topic. But I do have a feeling that, at least in the top 3, maybe in the number 1 position, it would be Samus Never Woods. But yeah, let's get into this one. Let's go! And before we do get started, if you do like this content and want to see more from this channel, please do make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on post notifications. Now let's go on with the video. And number 10 had to be New Blood. In this episode, we see Dodge Chaplin has created robots that look like Karai. With this in mind, Shredder sends them out to kill the turtles. But when the turtles come across a foot working inside the Triceratops ship, so the only natural thing for them to do was to stop it, but unfortunately they encounter the robots. The turtles made it out alive and Shredder they wanted all along. This is an okay episode and one that I think can just justify why it's on number 10 spot. Other than that, I find this episode to be slightly more enjoyable than other ones in the honorable mention, but it's nothing too amazing that stands out. It's just then just pretty good, you know? And number 9 had to be Mission of Gravity. In this episode, Karai teams up with Turtles to stop a country from falling to the ground and killing loads of people. But while doing this, she must also retrieve the device that makes it fall. But along the way, the plan goes off the rail with Han pushing the Turtles and Karai off the plane, or with Baxter and Han leaving without Chaplin and Karai. This episode is very enjoyable and enjoyable one to watch, and gets much more interesting as the episode goes on. However, I never really thought this episode was amazing or anything other than it's okay. But there are some really cool action things and action scenes, I should say, and also the dialogue with Karai at the end. I feel like that really just makes her character more human. And I feel like this one's like a real big, like, character development episode that is not really too much of an important one, but like, when do take a deeper look into some scenes, is there. And number 8 had to be Touch and Go. In this episode, we see Mikey and Splinter travelling across the sewers, but then they are attacked by 2 men with abilities called Touch and Go. After this, Mikey comes up with a plan to take them down, and it worked. Not to mention, Raph also helped a blind lady out by packing up her things and then telling her that she can stay at her home. Mikey's stuff in this episode was okay, but it's a shame that he forgot to learn his lesson in the next few episodes. But the scenes with Raphael were really nice to see, as it gave him more of a personality that makes him seem more like a nice guy. And I don't think that we don't really get to see that too much, so I feel like when we do get to see it like this instant, I feel like it shines out more. And while it doesn't make his character look any weak or out of the ordinary, it just makes him feel more interesting as a person, as a character, as we don't really get to see this side of him. And number 7 had to be Bishop Gambit. In this episode, we see Agent Bishop get hold of Master Splinter. With this in mind, the Turtles team up with Leatherhead and Future Toy to go and rescue him. But when they are there, they must encounter the Slayer. After all this, the Turtles were successful in their mission, but Bishop got away. This episode was very good one for Bishop, as it shows him differently here, with him being a bit more different than other bad guys. It's also fun to see that this episode is the first version of Rat King to have a origins of sorts of how he came to be. But there are like a little fun moments in this episode, but some of those can only go so far. But the actions, I feel like that was quite good to see, and also it's quite a nice team up with like Donatello, Leatherhead, and Future Toy. Something we never really get to see too much or barely ever. So this is quite cool to see. I just wish they would expand a bit more on it, because that's like a very cool team to have. And number 6 had to be The Darkness Within. In this episode, we see the Turtles help Angel out with trying to find her brother. This, however, leads them down to a basement with an old man's house, but while they're down there, they get captured and start to see the nightmares. They eventually escape, and the old man finally dies. This episode is very good, and I don't have any reason for me liking this episode so much. However, my only problem with this episode is the Turtles never really talk about their problems after this episode. And I also like seeing how Young Justice done it, with how they pulled it off after their traumatic experience, where they did one episode just talking about their problems and how they feel about it all. I feel like this would have worked really well here, like, and this could have been watched after Seven's Never Was episodes, you know, because they went through traumatic experiences and they just get over it as if nothing's happened. But that's my only big problem with this episode. But other than that, I do quite enjoy it. You get to see Toes out their elements and we get to see like the big fears. But with that, we also get to see some really disturbing things. And number 5 had to be h.a.t.e. In this episode, we see April trying to get along with Casey's mother, but it's very hard to for her. Also, we see Raphael and Don trying to stop some terrorists from nuking the city due to a name scum, as they called them. This episode, for me, has always been so much fun to watch. The April stuff was fun to watch as it was like nothing we've ever seen before in told history. But the main story, the main reason why I do like this episode so much is just because the interactions with Don and Raphael that are shown throughout this episode. We don't really get to see these two alone working together, so when they do, it's not like at the best of like working together. They have like amazing chemistry together, and I do believe that if you show these two tales more as like alone, I feel like you would have so much more better episodes. As I do feel like these two tales work really well together, but for some reason they never showed them. So when this episode came along, I feel like it was an amazing episode and really does stand out a lot more than all the others, just due to Raphael and Donatello's interactions. And then 4 had to be Hunted. In this episode, we see Leatherhead having PTSD younger, and anger issues and nightmares from ancient bishop's torture. But one night when things are really bad, he accidentally wakes up and hurt mightily. After this, he runs off so that no one else can get hurt. By doing so, he encounters a hunter and asks him to just end it all. But when he says that he's going to go after the Trolls, he tries to attack him, but the hunter catches him. So the Trolls go after Leatherhead and was able to successfully save his life. Now, in recent years, I have come to love this episode and appreciate it even more, with its dark themes and issues that is handled very well. And I'm very surprised not many people have really talked about this episode much more than it has, just due to what it shows, and just how mature this episode really was. But I would say my own problem with this episode is that, like, after they deal with his Leatherhead's problems, they just send him away to his new home within and then we don't see him for another 10 episodes. So I think that's my only real problem, is that I don't really deal with it too much. Is go, well, you got your problems, just deal with it yourself. That's where I'm sort of seeing it from. But I do like how mature this episode is, and I'm really ashamed that it did not go into this a bit more deeper. Now, number 3 had to be Same As It Never Was. Now, I know a lot of people would say that this is number 1 spot, but this is where it sort of lands for me. So in this episode, we see Don get teleported to an alternate future where Shredder has won his battle against the Utrons and has conquered Earth. So in one final attempt to defeat the Shredder, Don brings the Turtles back together to defeat the Shredder. They're able to complete their goal, but at the high price of everyone's life, except from Don and April. Well, what can I say about this episode that has not been said already? I know why people will say that this episode is their favourite, and I would too, but with a dark and disturbing ending, it makes me wonder why I watch it so many times, and like something so dark sometimes. But the other 2 episodes that are on this list, they are more popular, so I feel like that might be one reason. Also, probably another reason why I don't want to put it in number 1 spot is just because everyone else is probably gonna do that. So I just don't want to be that person. But I do think this is a really good episode, and yeah, I just wish they brought out a sequel or extended it even more. That's my real problem, is that I wish they extended it like an hour or like a movie or something like that. But damn, this episode was good. And number 2 had to be Han on the Run. In this episode, Han is given a second and last chance to prove himself to Shredder, but he's still good working for Shredder by saving Cry's life. Only for backstage you get involved, as he wants the Turtles to stop him. This leads Han to chase after Bishop before it leads to one massive fight on the train with Han and Cry and the Turtles to fight Bishop, in which they lost. This episode is very fun to watch. I think the main reason for it being one of my favourites is just because it focuses on Han, which you never really get to see too often, but when I do, the episode is really good to watch. I also think that another reason why I love this episode so much is because all the fight that happens within this episode is so much fun, as it gives all the characters like a little chance to show off who they are, or not really who they are, but like their own fighting techniques and all that, and it just gives them time to shine. Whereas in other episodes, all the characters have their own little mini signal fighting, like very 1 minute, 2 minutes. But this episode, we get to see even though it's probably more shorter, but we do get to see their own individual one. And because of how many characters had in it, I feel like it worked really, really well. It's just an amazing episode. It's one of those ones where I can't really justify too much, but I just like it, you know? Okay, so quickly before we look on to the number one spot, I'd like to give some honorable mentions. So the first one is reality check. In this episode, we see Mikey get teleported to a world where the Turtles are superheroes, and they all need to stop this world splinter. At the end, Mikey gets teleported back to his world, and that's it for this episode. This episode was cool to see the Turtles being superheroes. Only wish we had got to see them more afterwards. So the next honorable mention would be Christmas Alien. In this episode, everyone's getting ready for Christmas, and there, Mikey is out stopping crime and delivers a truck of toys to an orphanage. This episode is a very good one, and come on, who doesn't like a Christmas special? I mean, it's very heartwarming. I think there are a lot of positives about this episode, but at the end of the day, I feel like the main reason why is just because it's a Christmas special that I like it so much. And my last honorable mention will be the lesson. In this episode, the Turtles think about a time they tried to help a kid beat up some bullies, only for the kid to turn out to be Casey Jones. This episode is a cool story, and it's always cool to see Turtles, but I think other than that, it lacks a lot of coolness that the show offers in most episodes. So now, at number one spot, it had to be Exodus. In this amazing season finale, the Turtles try to stop the Shredder from leaving Earth, but things take a drastic turn for the worse when Vision gets involved. So when their final showdown in space happens, the Shredder is able to defeat the Turtles very badly. So with their last stand against Shredder, they decide to blow the ship up. Luckily, the Utroms got there in time to save him, as well as putting the Shredder in Exodus for his crimes. For season finale and as a told episode, these episodes are amazing and always are fun to watch. With the last battle, it always leaves you wanting more. But I think the first part is more enjoyable as it's mostly fighting against the other factions, but it does make the whole thing gets a lot worse as everyone keeps getting involved. It just makes the threat even worse than it already is. But also another thing that I like about this episode is that it wraps up the whole story arc really well, and would have been a crime to see one of the most skilled drawers to be defeated so easily. So I think the only downside I got to this episode is that the ending with the cult, even though it's an important scene, I just find it boring, but the rest of it, just perfect really. I'm just so glad that I was able to do this in a proper way that I think fans can respect and enjoy, and just be like, yeah, these episodes were amazing season finale, what more could we want? But yeah, that's my top 10 list for season 3 of 2003 tmnt show. Let me know what your top 10 episodes are. I do think that a good majority of them a good majority of the people's list will be the episodes in Never Wars episode. Probably Exodus is probably going to be up on there as well. But yeah, so yeah, without further ado, that's going to be it for today, guys. If you do listen, please share, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Goodbye, yo, bye.